Hey guys, welcome back to American Adventure. Today's episode is going to be all about the last final attraction for this entire park. And I saved this one for last because I didn't have any ideas of how to produce another dark ride that's based off of like automobiles is basically the area. So we're back in Town of Industry, and this is the back area that needed to be filled in. And so I spent about, I think, a couple weeks on and off trying to figure out what type of story I was trying to tell. It's a very loose story, by the way. It's not like more of my solid one. Like it would be like my boat ride for Bountiful Farms is way more solid than this one. But I'm okay with how I produced it and how the building sits in the land, and it covers up that whole empty spot that is in the back of the land. So this is kind of a special episode that we're ending it with this type of ride, another dark ride, and I think this whole project has been a blast. I've learned a lot of things about it, but the project's actually not done. I still have to do some detail work. I still have to build 2 colonial ships in Boston Harbor and then a colonial fort that I have decided to put in later. I'll show you the the pre-work for that in the tour. And then I think I'm still gonna build that water park that I want to do. That's up down the corner of the map. It's like the left corner of it. And that water park I think has the theme of Harbors of America, so I'm calling it Harbors of America. So I'll have 4 different harbors that will be depicted in different types of slides or rides. I'm going to use more water rides down there to kind of help make that park more kinetic energy, because I had an issue. It's nothing on Coaster Bee. Now, Coaster Bee made a pretty cool water park series. I suggest you go check it out. But I feel like the park doesn't do much because, again, the water slides don't work. So I'm going to try to utilize more rides to place of the slides to kind of give the park a little bit more life, and the guests can go and check it out. I'm going to try to do some trickery with the water slide mod, see if I can stick a ride in or something. But that's experimentation right now. That's still going on. Yeah, so right now I'm trying to reorganize some of the benches here next to the restaurant for the Iron Horse Brewery and figure out the queue line for the ride and then build the building. Now the building itself, in my opinion, looks pretty boring, but I try to make it interesting as possible. So this building is copying a pretty close replica to the office building that the company Ford used as one of their office buildings. I think it's probably what it looked like. I looked at a whole bunch of reference pictures. I copied it pretty closely. But the idea of this whole ride was to be like World of Motion from Epcot. That's an old ride, by the way. That ride does not exist anymore. That got replaced by Test Track. So the idea was to make this ride kind of like a education ride. So it teaches you about the invention of the car. So it teach you about, oh, we had horses and buggies, and then it turned into the invention of the automobile, and then the future of cars and transportation in general. So that's kind of what it went from. The ride itself is called Ford's Wheels of Progress. Kind of very simple, nothing too crazy, and I did like that it says wheels in the name, so I kind of stuck with that. First things first is to figure out the layout, figure out that it has to be, waviness. A layout for a dark ride usually goes in its out of itself, lots of loops, straightaways, things like that. So I'm glad I did it somewhat like my own blueprint here, and that helps out in planning. So I suggest you do that too when you're working on projects of this size. Pre-plan, plan. Planning always is the best thing to do. So right now I'm going to figure out my cutaways to kind of show what 2 scenes I want to show. I feel like only showing 2 scenes is easier to deal with than, say, I wanted to show 3 scenes. Again, I also didn't have a story at this point because when I was working on it, I was just kind of not feeling it. But I kind of pushed myself through it, and then onto basically figuring out that it's going to show scene 1, well actually it's not scene 1, it's like more like scene 2 or 3, is showing the factory of the cars being built. And then the last scene is about the futures of cars, and a modern car is in that scene. It's designed like a New York street or something. So I felt like that was appropriate because, again, Town of Industry is kind of my industrial area, and I felt like that was the best scene to kind of replicate. So that's what I went for. So on to roof work and other things. So I want to have a skylight, you want to call it? Yeah, skylight. To kind of give depth and vision to the ride. Again, with Parkitect being at this isometric view, I feel like roofs are actually the most entertaining thing to do in this game. So I feel like if you make an interesting roof, you get more attention to it, and it looks interesting, and the building looks interesting. So right now with this little outcrop here, with this bordered wall and this back door, is the maintenance area for the dark ride. It's incorporated into the building. I kind of want to suggest that there's a lower building that houses the vehicles where they will get switched off the track and into a maintenance bay, and then goes from there. So that's kind of what I did here. I think it worked out really well. I like it. But we don't even see how it looks like inside because I don't build it. I just suggest it. But doing things like that for a realistic build of this nature actually helps with the nature of the attraction and the backstage area stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, as we stare at it, basically, because that's what happens. So, most of the backstage area is done in American Adventure. I'm gonna shave some areas off and make it into forest because I honestly don't think we need to do more stuff. I do still need to do a wardrobe area where costume characters and performances would have their dressing rooms and stuff, so that needs to be later built. I don't know where I'm going to put that. I'm thinking about still doing an administration building for the park because you need to put your office building somewhere. This is where accounting would be, maybe memberships to the park would be, but also administration stuff. So payroll, what's it called? Human resources. Jeez, I almost forgot. All those important things need to be in a theme park, especially at this size, because this theme park is supposed to be like a Disney-esque theme park, so might as well do that type of building in the back somewhere, probably near the Pacific Pier, toward the back. I would like to put the administration building back there, maybe. So that's probably what I want to do. Probably the best place to put it. So basically this park is, oh well, no, there's more stuff that needs to be done. I already explained. I think I want to build a miniature golf course for the hotel or a convention center. Some more ride signs need to be designed. That needs to happen. So, and then at that point, and after all those things are done, and then I think the park would be finished, and then it will be released on the workshop soon-ish. Maybe I'll get this done by summer, July. Maybe. I'm not rushing. I'm still doing other projects like new scenarios that I'm working on, and then the Coaster Bee Challenge stuff. So I'm just kind of going a whole bunch of projects here and there. So it's all busy. So yeah, right now I'm just doing decorational for the station building, just figuring out where things should be and how it should sit. Now, on to actually maybe working on some scenes and changing some track layout to figure out the scenes that I want. So this scene right here is going to be for the factory, the actual factory. They'll show cars being built and assembled, and then an narrator will talk about those cars being built, blah blah blah, by Ford. Then it goes on to the next scene, maybe about how well they sold, or the implications of what the car did to American culture, stuff like that. So again, this ride is basically having the same beats as, I would say, Worlds of Motion. It would probably have the same beats. Maybe even have beats like for Test Track. Let's say Test Track's more like testing your car, testing out your design, and then taking it for a spin. That's kind of what that ride's about, not really about history about the automobile, because at this point, cars are so like ingrained in American culture, so it kind of works for a ride of this nature to be in this theme park. So if I was able to design a dark ride from scratch, I probably would do something more history based like this. Probably. It's probably a little bit easier. And then you figure out ways to kind of do designs and scenes and things, but there's so much more details that go into a dark ride, like music, show scenes of what the guests get to see, and things like that. So right here I'm going to work on some doors, the only working doors in all of my dark rides that I've ever built. And I use the controller and then trigger the door to open when the car hits a certain piece of track, and then time it. I think that's about 6 seconds opening, yeah. And then I do the same on the other door, and then it kind of goes in and out of this scene. You see doors open and close. So I love that we can do that now, because we didn't before. Again, if you haven't got the Booms and Blooms DLC, I suggest you get it, because the controller really changes a lot of the way you design your rides and things, and adding things to your park to make things glow or activate or stuff. So on to making caution tape road lines for the building around it. So I've noticed that like Tokyo Disneyland has a lot of caution like areas, so you can't park your car anywhere backstage unless designated parking spaces. So I kind of imitated that with my backstage area basically. So here are funnels that I've learned that were on the factories for the Ford factory back then. I don't know if they are, probably just ventilation stacks. So I felt like imitating them here and just kind of having this wall kind of decorated in a way. So this kind of helped in giving this area a little bit more interest instead of just being such a plain rectangle building. Again, when you do factories are so plain. So I try to make them interesting with pipes and details, wires, lights, maybe concrete decoration along the walls or the tops of walls. Yeah, on top of walls or pillars, things like that. So that's kind of what I try to do for this type of theme. It's not the funnest theme to build. Let's see, what was the funnest theme to build in this project? I would say it's a tie between the airfield and Pacific Pier. Out of those two, I think I had the most fun doing theming, because there were completely things that I was not used to doing, and yet it turned out, I think, the best out overall. So I would rate my, let's see, how would I rate my lands? From 1 to 8, because I only have 8 lands, I think, right? So I have, let's count, I'm going to count. We have Liberty Street, Boston Harbor, Victory Field, Bountiful Farms, Town of Industry with New York Waterfront, because that's 6, because I made it a 6th land, and then Pacific Pier, and then Great Frontier. So 8 lands. Okay. So the 8th would probably be Boston Harbor. I'm not really into that. That would be rank 8. And then it would go to New York Waterfront, Industry, the Farms, and then the last 3 would probably be Great Frontier, Pacific Pier, and the Victory Field are kind of very, very close. They're tied to first right now. I don't know. That's hard to pick. If you guys have any way how you rank my lands in American Adventure, put them down in the comments. I'm kind of curious, because that's how I would kind of maybe rank my lands. Yeah, it's interesting. So right now, This scene is being worked on. This is just doing some girder work and some iron work for the structure of the inside of the factory building. So originally I was going to build Model T cars out of shapes and stuff, but I didn't have the energy to build Model T's cars custom, and I think they would have been too small. So I just opted to do regular cars from the vehicle tab. So it's the classic car. So that's one from the 50s. So I felt like that was more proper. I mean, I painted them black like a Model T, so I kind of just was my placeholder. It felt easier to do so. I didn't really want to stress myself out with making a propped car. I mean, I've done it before, but again, I didn't have the energy. But I don't think I'm probably not gonna go back in and actually put those in. I don't care. That's harsh to say, but I don't think it's necessary. I think the scene already tells what it is. It is a factory, and then cars are being constructed, and then it goes from there. So that's kind of the objective here. I'm just gonna add some now details of racks and tires and boxes and oil spills, and then chocolate pieces for vents because I have to. It is now a tradition that I have to do a project and have to include a chocolate bar. If I don't include a chocolate bar, you don't know it's my build anymore. You have to do it now at this point. So chocolate bars are always going to stay. Doing some doors, figuring out where they should sit, and then adding borders around them, I think. Do I have borders around these? I don't think I do. I just make them out of the hanger doors. Yeah, or hanger walls. So there's scene number... There's the first scene that I worked on, not number 1 necessarily, but it's a scene. Oh yeah, AC units already happened. And then I put some caution poles in front of the doorway in case a car accidentally takes a turn. They can protect the door. So this scene was just going to be imitating a street with a modern car, and then area we'll talk about the impacts of vehicles on American lifestyle, and then go from there. So I think that's would be probably the narrator would say as the car would go through, and then the last scene would probably be, well, it's a turn right into the station, so probably nothing. It'll probably just be an extension of the street, just with no cars in it or something, and then the music would kind of die down, and then you go into the station, and then there you go. This is how I imagine a dark ride of this nature would look. I built a small little fire hydrant, because we don't have a fire hydrant prop, which I was surprised that we didn't have it, and that's okay. I can make it out of shapes. Again, shapes are my friend. So made some steps and stairs for like New York apartment buildings, and kind of just made them pretty generic looking. I did this really cool railing effect with the cable pieces, and then did some pillars to help out with the supports, and then there you go, we got railings and then regular lights. And then this is a cool effect. I learned this from my good friend Pierre by doing cube shapes at the floor and kind of staggering them. They look like paper on the floor and junk. So that's kind of what I did, and I like that effect. I think that adds like grittiness and detail to your maps, because Parkitect is very clean if you don't do anything to break up the cleanness by adding junk and stuff. That's why I love using the burial mound, because it could add like junk and dust in your paths, and it's the best way to do it. So that's kind of what I did here. So here comes the last stretch. I got to work on the Ford's Wheels of Progress sign, and this sign's not really that crazy like some of my other ones. It was more of a basic signage, I would say. So I just kind of put this together quickly. Actually, it wasn't quick. It was like 20 minutes. So I did some pretty cool lantern trickery to make them look like lights that would work. Actually, there's lights underground, and they kind of light it up, and then I made the sign, and it worked out pretty well. So this time lapse is actually wrapping up, and then I will meet you over into the live view, and we'll talk about all the new stuff, or the future stuff that's coming for American Adventure, and then some of the things that I'm going to think about doing. So I'll meet you over there. Okay, here we are in the town of industry, and here is Ford's Wheels of Progress. I didn't mean to click that, that's my bad. So I'm just going to show you some of the close-ups of it, and how the ride is kind of built in this area. So the area is basically, well, I built this probably a couple weeks ago, more than a couple weeks ago, more like a month ago actually. It's like really old. So I had to redesign that to kind of fit better. I like the idea of having the ride go out and then go into the show building, so this stayed as the design. Here's the wonderful little Ford's Wheels of Progress sign. I think this works out pretty well. And then the entrance is kind of with boxes and tires, and you walk in. The exit for the rides are back here because it makes sense to kind of make it out right here. I actually might have to put a restrooms back here. I think I have one restrooms in this park, don't I? Or in this land. Here's one. Might have to build one back here, maybe. But things can always change. So here's the lower section of the building. This is where the maintenance shed is. Door, truck. Here's our first scene that I worked on. This is the car factory. Here's the cars, barrels, tires, things. And then these are the two controllers that I used to have the doors open and close. So if we're going to sit here and wait for a door to open, there comes the vehicle. Comes through, and then door closes right behind it. So I think that actually works out pretty well. So I like this scene. I think it works well for what I'm trying to portray. So on to the next scene. Here's the little New York street scene. Pathways, fire hydrant, paper, junk, and then building. And it takes a roundabout into the next corner, into the exit of the attraction. So I think this works out really well too, because it's car related, streets, it's town, stuff like that. So that is Ford's Wheels of Progress. I'm happy with the final result, how it sits back here. It kind of blocks line of sight things from backstage areas. This one's the more open, like, line of sight issue, but putting these trees on a berm actually helps with that line of sight, because you do get to see this as backstage, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem, because again, it is a warehouse that kind of would match the rest of the theming here in this land. So I do like it. Yeah, I think the park is at the point, like, very rounded out, and I think there's really nothing else I could do besides the boats that I mentioned the boats every episode, and I haven't been able to build boats, but I can do it. I just being lazy. So we need to build 2 colonial boats, maybe on one this side and one on this side, maybe? I don't know yet. And then I cleared land for the upcoming colonial fort. The paths are all walked out here. And I'm assuming that I can make the fort kind of stretch here and then stretch across, like another gate or so, and have a fort out here, and I can actually have more like areas of museum or something for the guests to kind of interact with, right? Because it's supposed to be like a learning experience, so maybe there's a show here that happens, like a fight. That'd be cool, actually. Like if that was like part of the park's entertainment. But that, and what else needs to be fixed? There needs to be a sign for this little snack or this restaurant for the hotel, and then this back area needs to be, I think, a miniature golf course. And then the next big project would be over here to build the said water park. I already have some ideas and plans, and just have these placeholders of rides and stuff. And yeah, I think I could build a water park here, because it's big enough. I think it would actually do pretty good. So I'm gonna leave you guys here, and I will see you guys probably in the next American Adventure episode. And yeah, I'll catch you then. Bye.